Hello, thank you for having us. Okay, so I'll start. Camilla Fayed, I founded, thank you for the kind introduction, the fully plant-based stroke vegan restaurant in London, and we opened our second doors in New York this September. That's my introduction. Heston?
Okay, I'm a chef. I've got some restaurants.
Quite a few.
And in fact, on the face of it, I think Camilla and I might not have the same approach to life, but I think we actually, when you bed into it, we do. And I feel, I'll try not to ramble.
No, and I'll cut you off if you do, so don't worry.
Thank you very much. Yes, I have no doubt about that.
I'll just wink.
That we became human beings because of our relationship with the food that we hunted, gathered, cooked, prepared, ate, and shared. So our relationship, the most intimate relationship a human being has is with their breath and themselves. Then it's with what they drink and with what they eat. And what I think you've done, which to me is really, really important. It doesn't matter if you're vegan, if you eat no pork, if you eat beef, if you only eat mushrooms, whatever. It's all about the relationship with yourself.
Absolutely. And I think, well, predominantly the reason why I started my business and actually, we opened 4 years ago. And at the time, the trend, boom of veganism and plant-based eating was really not a trend. In fact, it was a massive risk to open something, I hate to use the word, but radical at the time. And really the philosophy and the deeper understanding of what I was trying to do is exactly that, infiltrate this connection, this reconnection that we've so greatly lost with nature.
Was there a moment that sparked off your decision to do that?
I think a huge amount of activism within my own personal life. I think, again, through just understanding the fundamental breakdown that we have, exactly as you said, the breakdown of thank you, I'll have some too.
Yes.
The breakdown that we have with the connection of nature and food and how we grow food, how we farm.
Yeah.
The food ultimately that we have been eating for the past 40 to 60 years have been industrialized, and I think the industrialization of food and agriculture has pretty much ruined that connection.
Do you think this comes down to gratitude? So the idea that we take for granted our breath, we take for granted the water that we drink, and we take for granted the food that we eat.
Yeah.
So if you look at religion, I believe in the belief of religion. But
Absolutely.
I'm not religious, but I believe in the belief. And I believe in the belief that the fact that religions potentially connects people.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you look at saying grace or equivalent in various religions, just before you drink something or when you eat something, if you can connect with what you drink.
And it's the awareness that you have before you take the first bite, ultimately.
Yes. And the awareness of what's happening on your lips when you're sipping or you're eating. What's happening in your mouth. Instead of just what we tend to do now is we just get handfuls of food and we just do this.
Or the convenience matter. You can walk into somewhere and get a burger for £1 or whatever it is, and there's no understanding of where the meats come from, the breads come from, what the bread has in it, for instance. Bread should be made with 3 ingredients: flour, water, and salt. It's now made with
It should be made
30 ingredients.
with patience.
With patience
love.
and love. And actually, and it is, and bread making, again, and it's one of the most beautiful and oldest connections that we've ever had with food. But then look at the lack of understanding of just something so simple like bread.
Yeah.
And again, going back to taking it for granted, we've lost that actual gratitude of this beautiful process
Which
of,
is-
say, making bread.
Yeah, absolutely. And comes
And
back
that
to
lack of
saying grace.
awareness.
I have in the V&A Museum some cheese.
Right.
Does anyone know about this?
Tell us.
I was approached. I've made cheese with it's a swab of my nostrils and testicles.
Wow.
And it's in a fridge in the V&A Museum.
Okay, right.
I didn't expect to say this, by the way.
But we should all know about it.
But there's that film, Like Water for Chocolate. You know that your mum, your grandmother, makes the best roast potatoes. Mm. If you make a sandwich for somebody with love, two things I believe happen. One is that your emotion, and it's called emotion because it's energy in motion. It's a vibration, it's a resonance, happiness. That gets transferred to the food. Also, the microbes, but we have more, every human being has 1,000 times more microbacteria in their body than the known stars in the universe. We have more microbiome, 3 to 4 million species we've found so far, than human beings that have ever existed on this planet. So we eat to feed the little creatures in our gut that keep us alive. So that belief, if we cook, if we make bread, you make with love. So one, you transfer the vibration of your emotion, and also those microbes transfer themselves from your gut to your skin, and you transfer this emotion
to food.
To the food.
Absolutely.
You transfer it. And when you work for your reward and you make a piece of bread or you make a loaf of bread if you talk about veganism, generally it's evolving ingredients that have more cellulose and more fiber. And you have to be more patient.
And it's ultimately a movement of kindness. And I think that it is exactly that.
Yeah.
When you talk about emotion and food, and I think the movement is, especially the good that the movement has brought, is this understanding of kindness to human beings, to the environment, animal welfare.
Agree.
I mean, it is ultimately something for the greater good of our planet.
I agree.
And our human health.
And I think even if you're looking at eating meat, I believe that if you're going to eat meat, so do we cultivate wheat or did we cultivate us to cultivate wheat?
Right.
Do we cultivate beef or did beef cultivate us to cultivate beef? Do we develop mass or was mass there waiting for us to develop it? Mm-hmm. It's called superpositioning. If you eat meat,
is there a way of actually, again, when you talk about frequency and emotion of food, is there a way of actually, is there such thing as ethical killing in your eyes?
Yes, I believe there is. If you take a leaf from a tree, for me, it's the same as killing an animal.
I
so if you
slightly
believe,
agree and disagree.
So what I'm saying is, there was a guy, and this goes back thousands of years, but let's say in 1960-something, there was a guy called Cleve Baxter. You can look this up. He worked for the FBI, and the Cleve Baxter Center for Lie Detector Machines.
Yeah.
In San Diego. It's still there. And he took his polygraph machine and he wired it up to a plant.
Right.
And he saw a movement, an energy. He noticed this, the lie detector machine moved when he walked into the room, and he wrote about this as if the plant was aware of another presence in the room.
Right.
He took an astronaut. Again, guys, look this up. He's written papers about this. And he took this astronaut who was on the board of Harvard University. He took his saliva. and he put the lie detector machine into the saliva. And the guy flew to meet his son 300 miles away. And they synchronized watches. And he had 3 spikes in the machine. This is quantum physics.
Right.
And it was when he was stressed. So his saliva, what I'm trying to get to here.
I may have to cut you off in a minute.
What I'm trying to get to here is that the belief, if you value what you eat and you value every mouthful, then that's completely different.
I agree, but I think that the difference between
there's a whole
what I was
story.
trying to get your thoughts behind was the way that obviously animals feel emotion, as you say, that
Yes.
frequency and
Yep.
love that we should
Yep.
have towards food.
Yeah.
I don't think, yes, I truly believe that the nature has a sense of higher intelligence, but I don't believe that it has the emotional intelligence like an animal would. So that's what I'm talking about, hence why, again, in many religions, they look at eating meat as a sense of, what I suppose it's discord within the emotional frequency, as you say, because of the killing aspect.
I think a mountain thinks, it just takes a longer time to do it. So we don't know if a tree has more consciousness than a human being.
We know, yeah.
We don't. We
know that, say, something like the mushroom kingdom, the mycelium network that belongs to the mushroom kingdom, has a sense of intelligence.
Yes,
so
and that mycelium network feeds trees.
Absolutely. So again, it does have an intelligence network.
I
But
agree. Every living thing has an intelligence.
Yeah, but it doesn't have the emotional understanding as a cow would, for instance. Like a tree wouldn't say to you, or not say, it would not moo to you in pain, like a tree would, if you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yes. Yes,
but again, that emotional understanding of an animal is totally different from the plant kingdom.
But if you believe in string theory or particle physics, then everything has some level of consciousness.
I agree.
Everything.
I agree.
Now, our relationship with it, I think in terms of what you're doing, which I believe in so much, is that if you, I think you can eat meat.
But we need to eat less meat. And I think
this is just what I was going to say. And it is working for a reward. So our endocrine system evolved for working for a reward.
For sure.
Which means the harder you work to get something, the more you value what you get.
Yeah.
So the microbes in the soil, if you're going to eat meat, I believe you should eat meat from animals that have had to work hard to get the meat. Through the plants with the microbes that have had to work hard as well.
Sure, but ultimately that's not happening, hence why...
No, it's not.
Ecologically, the planet's
not.
in a mess, the food system's completely upside down, and I think that's why we are in this climate crisis that we are in, because...
We don't care.
Yeah.
We don't value food anymore, so we think it's okay to pay less money for a dead animal.
Yes, absolutely.
Than actually value what we eat.
Absolutely. And so, out of interest, so have you seen it's difficult for me to say, coming from obviously running a completely fully plant-based restaurant, have you seen customers ask you for, a fully vegan menu, or how does it work in, I suppose, mixed?
So if you, so the restaurant, we have.
Is there more of a demand?
It's a difficult question to answer because I also think at the same time that people have more food allergies than they've had before.
Yes, but why do we have so many allergies?
Well, there's never one reason for anything.
There's never one reason, but then it's going back to the system that we have created, and I think, again, looking at something like soil quality.
Yeah, but our unaware stress. So soil quality, I agree with you. I completely agree with you. we assume, for example, smoking gives you cancer. Right? Now, you can get cancer from smoking. You can get cancer from not smoking. You can not get cancer from smoking, and you can not get cancer from not smoking.
Sure.
So do you know that the half a dozen highest cancer rate countries in the world? France, Australia, Denmark. Okay. This is the World Health Organization. What I'm saying is, I'm not justifying smoking. No way. No way. No way. No way. But I think I believe in human beings. I believe in the amazing ability of human beings to imagine things that don't exist. Mm-hmm. That imagination allowed us to create shared beliefs. So those shared beliefs are religion, their language, their money, their time, their social media, their nations, cultures, shared beliefs. Imagining things allowed us to work together as a group to make stuff. So that imagination we have to hang on to.
For sure.
And what's happening in society now is cancer.
Well, it's a health world health epidemic. Ultimately,
Alzheimer's and dementia, the two worst diseases I can imagine a human being getting. If you lose your memory, you lose your belief, and you lose your ability to be human.
But then we just need to go back to asking the questions of why are those so prevalent in these days? Why are there so many neurological issues? But then I can definitely say with enough research to back what I'm about to say up is you can plant it back to the connection of food. What have we done to our soils for the past 40 years? What have we sprayed? Pesticides, fungicides.
Camilla,
that's that
I agree with
foundation
you so much.
level.
I agree with you so much. China
Yeah.
China has excuse my French, China has upped their soils.
For sure.
They bleached, they bought up big chunks of North Africa. Mm-hmm. They have over-farmed stuff.
And overfished.
And overfished. The plastic issue in the sea. I agree with you completely and utterly.
Yeah.
If we do not teach our children to be able to be creative, Einstein said, those who have never failed have never tried. And we are so scared now of failing. Mm-hmm. Imagination is what made us human beings. You would not have religion and films and language without imagination.
Yeah.
So that comes before food. It comes before food. Imagination is what makes us human beings.
But if you have so many issues, say for instance, look at the unfortunate rise of neurological issues and mental illness within children.
It's getting worse. It's getting so worse.
So that's even it's becoming such an epidemic that actually you're not even able to use your imagination in the way that we actually thought that we could.
Yep.
And I think, again, that does go back to, you talk about, microbiome in your gut. 70% of serotonin is made in your gut.
No, 97.7% of serotonin is made in your gut. 97.7 in your gut.
So if we look at that, again, as say something that we can, surely it is again about nutrition and what we're feeding our gut to be able to actually mechanize our brains.
Yeah, Camilla, it is. But we are so obsessed with things outside our body, right? So we think the longer we live, the food that we eat, the more money we have, when we have a family, when we go on holiday, when we have more friends on social media, these make our lives better. Yes, they do. They do. However, we've got to add our relationship with all of these objects.
Yeah.
And we have forgotten this. So we have to teach, if we could teach kids the wonderful ability, if you think about Einstein, think about Newton, you think about Bohr with quantum, all of these people, Charles Darwin, they did what every person in this room can do without distraction. They observed and they made connections. They had this incredible ability to imagine. After that,
do you want
yes,
to teach children imagination, ultimately?
I want to, yes, to teach them imagination, and also
How do you teach imagination?
by losing fear. So one of my ideas is a museum of shit ideas. So you imagine you got a wonderful old building, right? Just imagine it. It's got pillars and, it's like it's a wonderful old building, 500 years old, and it's got a big padlock on the door. Now, each one of you can have this building on one condition. You have to come up with an idea that is individual, unique, no one's thought of before, and it's so shit, excuse my French, that nobody else can turn it into something good. So you try and make up, I don't know, an umbrella without, whatever. A clock that never tells the right time. So you make a competition of shitness. Make a competition. We're so scared of failing. Sorry, that's my telephone. I don't know whether that's a shit idea. But imagine if you can do that with your friends. You go, right, I'm going to take those shoes and I'm going to make, I don't know, laceless shoes or just something rubbish. We're too scared of being rejected. We are so scared of failing in other people's eyes because we've developed, there was a woman in Australia, an Irish palliative care nurse 5 years ago that wrote a book on this, The Regrets of the Dying. And by far, the biggest regret was I wish I lived a life true to myself. Mm-mm. There's a Dalai Lama quote, which is an amazing quote, and he says that we spend all our life trying to earn money, and then we use our money to get our health back when we get older. And then, after we do that, we're so obsessed with our relationship with the past and the future that we don't exist in the present. And then we die never having really lived. We are not conscious of our mortality. The only thing that gives value to life is death. It's the only thing that gives value to life. But our lives become so comfortable.
Until you have that moment facing death, is that what you're saying?
Yes. So when you lose your breath, you value your breath. When you lose
something
liquid, you value. When you lose food, when you lose, and again, exactly what you're doing is the same thing. Only when you lose something do you start to value it. And our lives have become too comfortable.
Well, I think, exactly. Well, I think that's where we come to at this ultimate crisis point within our universe. Mm-hmm. That people are only just starting to wake up now to the devastating effects of what's actually happening. And hence why the trend of veganism or plant-based eating has taken off because of the actual, I suppose people have woken up from this anesthetization of living. Mm-hmm. And
that's a great word, actually.
Understood.
I wish I could say it, but anesthetization.
Anesthetization.
It's exactly.
I think people have woken up from a slumber.
Yeah.
And I think that slumber is, as you say, something that has been, once you're faced with this real terrible outcome, hey, if it's the death of our climate or whatever you want, and that's why people are taking action all of a sudden, and you hear about every, celebrity and whatever now talking about sustainability, and it's this buzzword, which is amazing, but then again, I want to know what action people are actually taking.
If we could,
and I think that's what I'm trying to do with my business, is create a solution for people. Again, it's not about radicalizing the way we eat. It's just about introducing these solutions that, people in your position and my position are. We can come up with that, and we can use our imaginations to show people that there is a way out, and it's not all doom and gloom, and it's not all.
But if you could value your breath more, if you could value more mouthfuls of food, just value them. Value It doesn't matter. It does matter.
But that comes from the individual, ultimately.
Yeah, but that's what should be trained. Just value. We can't value every mouthful of food that we ever have. We can't.
No.
Because we're too distracted.
But we can value where the provenance comes from.
Yeah, well, some mouthfuls, you know, when you think about that water. So I'm setting up a laboratory in France to study water. There is, you guys can look at you're going to think I'm flipping loopy.
Emoto? Is that what you're going to say?
Well, Emoto, but we just come back from the World Water Congress.
Right, amazing.
In Frankfurt. There were 3 Nobel Prize scientists that were talking about this, and water, you can restructure it. So we know what to do with water. We know we drink it, we wash with it, we cook with it, but we don't know what it is.
Yeah.
So a glacier should not float. An iceberg or whatever shouldn't float. There's a lot increasing evidence to show that water holds memory. It expands and it contracts.
Is everyone familiar with the work of Emoto, which is a Japanese scientist, researcher that studied the frequency? Basically, he put 2 glasses of water together and basically watched them for a month. And the one of the jugs of water had a frequency of love in it, so they were saying love, I love you, I love you, I love you, and the frequency basically changed and evolved in a positive way. And then the other jug had I hate you, I hate you, I hate you in it, and it actually then it's the act, you could see the actual physical frequency of that water change.
So this guy in France, James is with me, Luc de Montagnier, he got the Nobel Prize in 1984 for discovering the HIV virus. 6 years ago, he took a vial of HIV and he took its natural resonance. So if you think about, and this is, a lot of this is also Kabbalism, by the way. And it's
How is it Kabbalism?
Resonance.
Right.
So the vibration of light within a vessel. So if you look at Ayurvedic medicine, there's somebody called Schumann in the 1960s.
Schumann frequency.
Exactly. The 7 Schumann. There are 7 resonances that apply to the main vital organs of the body.
Yeah, which is also used in music as well.
The solfeggio.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. So everything is a vibrating particle. There's never nothing. So Einstein's theory of relativity doesn't work in a black hole. For me, there's only 2 reasons why it doesn't work in a black hole. In principle, it does, but there's never nothing. That's Kabbalism. There's never been nothing. But you need 0 or nothing for modern mathematics. Also, it believes that the speed of light is the fastest thing that exists. It's the fastest thing that we've found. But that's, again, Kabbalism. But we need an anchor. We need something to just decide that the Earth is flat or 0 is modern mathematics. So these resonances, the Schumann frequencies, that relate to the 7 colours of the rainbow, there's 7 frequencies. You guys can look all this up. What Camilla was saying, this Japanese guy and his assistant was doing a talk at this event. Amazing. He took 3 jars of rice with water. And every day he said to 1 jar, I love you, I give you gratitude. The 2nd jar, I hate you, you're useless. And the 3rd jar, he ignored. That first jar with love went gold. The second one went kind of greeny black. The 3rd one went really moldy black.
Now, I wonder if you could relate that back to, say, a sourdough starter or a bread starter or something, actually, as we talked about.
No, it's exactly.
Yeah, we should do our own experiment, actually.
I would love to do that.
No, honestly, and actually,
seriously,
because it's a live living.
It's a live living thing.
Yeah, and I mean, actually, we should do that. I mean, I would be fascinated to see what would
I'd
grow.
love to do it. I'd love to do it.
Yeah.
And that thing at the V&A, when I mentioned about the cheese.
I'm not sure if I want to go
No,
see that.
you don't have to go there. But there was a woman, James, was she from Korea? She did this copper art installation. And she was, her installation was exactly about that. If you give love to something, the love will be transferred. You know that if you're in a room and somebody is sulking, it's infectious, negatively or positively.
Yeah.
We can't measure the emotions yet, but we put that through the food, and that's exactly what you're doing. If you took about a vegan diet, you need to know that the bacteria in the soil and the things that are grown in, everything along the process has the same love. And valuing life. We don't value life in the way that I think we should do.
So it's interesting because I, at pharmacy, have this, again, this belief and understanding that exactly that moods are infectious. And so if there is a chef or there is something going on, which there always usually is in a kitchen, as you know, there is always some sort of a drama, especially with chefs. And, you know, and actually I would rather ask that person to go home than have them sit and cook the food, because I know that the food's going to be shit, that service, excuse my French. And, you know, I would actually... Totally. Yeah, but that's, again, just a very, you know, one-dimensional thing that we can do. I try to do for my customers is actually remove that.
I'm so with you on that. I made some comment to an Indian newspaper 2 months ago.
Is this about women carrying pots and pans?
It's bullshit.
Oh, no.
It is so...
Let's not go there. Okay.
But we can go there, because my comment was about women nurture in a different way than men. Right?
Yeah.
That's just evolution. So men can pick up heavier pots than women. Women have more emotional strength and sensibility than men.
Some. That's a big generalization. But some.
It's a big. I need to make a generalization.
Okay.
So my comment was about the difficulty that women have in a kitchen to work 20 hours a day if they want kids. Men don't have that problem, right? So they don't have that emotional fight. But they also don't have the sensibility, the ability to smell, the emotional connection that men do. Us men, we have a great sense of direction, but we've got GPS, so we're fucked there. And we used to bash our chest.
That's rubbish. My husband is like, he loses his car in a car park. You can't get anywhere.
So we're hanging on. Us men are hanging on for dear life.
I think ultimately we need each other. I think we can just safely say that. And I think obviously there are some, some really brilliant attributes as a female can contribute, and some that men can.
Yeah, but in terms of sense of smell, connectivity, and sensibility when it comes to connection with food, for me, men don't stand a chance, but they've become chefs.
But why is the chef industry so predominantly male orientated? I mean, even as a woman, 4 years ago, people were like, "Are you mad? You're opening a restaurant?" And I'm like, "Yes." I mean, this is a thing, and I think, ultimately taking that risk, being a woman in this very male-dominated industry is not easy, and it's exactly that. It's actually, there are very few women within the chefing industry, and I think it's actually, although maybe the conventional chefing industry, there's much more on the plant-based and vegan side of things, and we see a lot of women actually.
Actually, that's a good point.
Honestly, it's an amazing, real shift, and it's a paradigm shift to watch all these women.
Yeah.
Actually take the forefront of the plant-based and veganism movement within the industry.
What is it? It's believing in something that you can transfer some kind of positive emotion.
Yeah.
So whether it's love, whether it's gratitude, whether it's
kindness,
care, all of these things. if you can do this, you do this through food. You can't give somebody breath in the way that you can give them food.
You can give them CPR though.
Yes, I know. I didn't go. I didn't go there. But the way that you give love through food. Yeah,
And connection.
and there's no more nurturing I can think of. After your breath, after water, food, and if you care about what you eat, but without judgment to others.
Absolutely. And that's what we want to try and debunk with our business, especially that it's not about, this very preachy vegan movement, actually, which is, unfortunately, a lot of the movement is incredibly preachy. And, what we say at Pharmacy is we are not a church. We are not here to convert you. It's ultimately just giving people the solution. And I think it's exactly that. Is not...
Yeah, without judgment.
Without judgment. And I think it's this inclusivity that it needs to actually happen instead of this
and I think
exclusivity
if you
that...
can do that, which you're doing, the more that we in this business can do that, the more people will be prepared to have a go.
Absolutely.
If you point a finger and tell somebody to eat wilted spirulina, don't eat meat,
they'll
you're
tell
eating
you
too
to...
much sugar,
Absolutely.
it's judgmental.
Yeah.
So I think...
But vegans have got a very bad name for that, and that's something that I try on a daily...
you're not that, but you're not that.
No, but I think, again, it needs to be this sense of the macro. Why are we doing this? Why are we eating this way? Because it has a much higher and deeper purpose than just telling people what to do and how to eat. And it's, again, this sense of bringing it to more connectivity and healing and kindness
I think that word, connectivity.
Yeah. Instead of preaching to people or being this kind of holier than thou vegan, I think that's more the movement that we need to promote than anything else.
And I think human beings have an innate need, just like all living things, have an innate need to bond and connect.
Absolutely.
And if you're told to connect, well, you're not going to do it.
No.
But if you're given the opportunity to connect, but, without, this is where, say, social media has had problems. A white lie, for me, is one of the greatest collective self-abuses somebody could do.
A white lie?
A white lie.
In what way?
In the way that we will say, and I did this, I'm talking personally.
Right.
I was a people pleaser.
Yeah. I think we all are in some aspect.
We all are.
Yeah.
So wanting to make other people happy, most of us want to do that. Mm-hmm. The danger is when we edit out our full picture. So mine was, I want to give pleasure to somebody else, but I edited out the fact that I didn't want to be rejected.
But
I didn't want somebody else to feel worse than me.
We both chose hospitality in the service industry, so we must be big people pleasers because that's what you do.
Yeah, I wouldn't miss it for the world.
Exactly.
But I'm just aware now.
We are at service, ultimately.
I'm aware that, yes, if you are aware that you don't want to be rejected, then I think that's healthier. If you tell yourself that you are doing this only to please other people.
Right. I mean, that's disastrous.
That's what I did in my life.
Yeah.
That's what I did.
And have you changed your ways now? Have you?
Fairly massively, yes.
Yeah. Well, it's not easy. It's tiring to be a people pleaser for other people. I think that,
exactly.
What we can do is provide pleasure. And I think the ultimate, look, what you've done your whole life has you have created so much pleasure and excitement in people's lives and invited people to a sense of entertainment. And I think that is ultimately giving people pleasure. But I don't think that it should ever be about taking that pleasure away from you. So maybe that's...
Yeah, that's the realization that, in fact, it's okay not to want... It's okay to want not to be rejected. it's okay. It's when you lie to yourself.
Right.
When you don't realise that all your motivation, you want to tell people how good you are and how much you want to please other people. But if you edit out the fact that you don't want to be rejected, and most human beings don't want to be rejected, then I think you're starving yourself of awareness, of self-awareness.
Yeah. Agreed. So has that come from a lifelong being rejected?
54 years, yes.
No.
Basically, yes. I won't go there, but it's yes. Completely.
Interesting. And so do you feel now a different sense of, I suppose, purpose now that you've felt this kind of rejection all of these years? I mean, is there, do you run your businesses differently
in the
after having felt
12
this
months?
way?
Yes. Am I there? No.
Are we
Rome
ever?
wasn't built in a way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. Are we ever? But the great thing, and I think this is a great thing that every human being can do, is have the potential to. We're on a hero's journey, everyone. So have the potential to learn about ourselves. And the only word I can think of in the human language that exists everywhere, in every universe, pre, post, in everywhere, is the word potential.
And love.
But potential has no opposite.
Right.
Love, potential has no opposite. Everything has potential.
Right.
Love, I think that as human beings, above the fireplace in the Hind's Head, this is my pub in Bray, I walked past it maybe 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 times, and I did not realise the importance of the phrase. 350 years ago, this was put in gold leaf above the fireplace. And it said, fear knocked on the door. Faith answered. And no one was there. We don't need to suffer. Human beings don't need to suffer. Us Jews, by the way, do quite good. We do suffering quite well. But human beings suffer. Everyone suffers. Everyone.
So why do we need to contribute by, say, serving meat and actually contribute to them?
No, I'm talking about meat.
But I'm just saying that yes, of course, we do value human suffering, but also isn't it time that we also value animal suffering?
Does a cow suffer more than a tree?
No, but then we're going back to motions
or
of
mycelium suffer more than something else? I care about living things.
Yeah.
I think that going back to Cleve Baxter, the guy that did the light detector, if you give value, one gives value and gratitude to a living thing. It could be an aubergine, it could be a cow or a fish. If you give gratitude to a living thing, then it feels it has a purpose, like a human being.
But then so can you give gratitude to factory farms? I mean, can we extend our gratitude to...
Potentially, yes. Now, this is a difficult...
Is that going to stop...
No, I don't agree with it.
Yeah.
I don't agree at all. But two people could eat at McDonald's.
If we care so much about
and if one person gives
suffering,
gratitude to the McDonald's more than the other, there's an argument to say that would be more beneficial. Do I agree with it? No. No.
What, do you agree with eating McDonald's? No.
No, I don't. But
that's suffering.
If you pick a basil leaf, right, that leaf is a living thing.
Agreed.
The soil it's grown from is a living thing. There's microbes in that soil.
I think we have to do questions. Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is, I believe everything is living.
Agreed,
Everything
but we
is
shouldn't
vibrating.
be contributing to the suffering if
That's
it's
a different. That's
human.
a different kettle of fish.
Now,
and I'm with you.
Yeah.
Totally on that.
We've made the animal kingdom suffer enough, and to the
Well,
detriment
here's a question.
detriment of our environment.
Here's a question. Did we cultivate wheat, or did we cultivate us to cultivate wheat? If you look at Monsanto, which for me, I hope there's no journalists here, are pretty close to the devil in terms of a company.
Monsanto, that's now owned by the biggest pharmaceutical company that is also making your medicines.
Yes.
So
you know what they've done?
I know a lot about Monsanto.
Okay, so they're the closest thing to the devil.
I agree, but they're also
they
making
cultivated wheat,
your aspirin and your
they
other...
cultivated wheat to cultivate us. So a microbiome that lives in a cow, lives in a human,
Yes.
communicates.
Agreed. That's absolutely what I agree with. But I definitely don't believe in any more suffering, and any more, if it's human or animal suffering or leaf suffering.
Well, I think if we believe in individual suffering.
Yes, but we can all make that change at home, and I think that's exactly where it starts.
Exactly.
Is lack of suffering. We can predominantly start doing that from home, and then that ripple effect actually creates that change.
Yeah. Okay. Questions?
On that note, why don't we take some questions from the audience? Do you mind?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi.
Hi, it's been very, very interesting listening. Heston, have you seen the recent film Game Changers?
Which one?
Game Changers.
No, I haven't actually.
It's amazing.
Amazing
Yeah.
film. And what they've shown there is that, again, that they've sort of taken blood from people who've eaten one meal, just one meal of vegetarian and one meal of meat. And there's actually evidence of what damage is in that blood just after the one meal as opposed to a vegan meal. And the director, James Cameron, his wife is now promoting a book she's got out called One Meal a Day, of eating a vegan meal, and actual facts of how just every human having just one vegan meal a day will completely change the damage that we sort of...
I agree. Just want to make it really clear. I agree that we need to eat more cellulose, fibrous, placed ingredients, so that the microbiome in our lower intestine have to work for reward, right? So I completely believe in this. We need more plant-based foods, without a shadow of a doubt. We also need to eat without judgment. We have, if we believe, so there's a lot of evidence now to show, very cutting edge research, if you drink water and you believe that if you don't drink a litre of water a day, you're going to be sick, you are carrying unaware stress, loneliness, anxiety, dementia, Alzheimer's. Just please listen to this. It's so important. In 3 years' time, you'll hear. If you drink this without appreciation, then your resonance, your emotional resonance, will change the frequency and the resonance and vibration of this water, and you'll drink your own poison. So there is really important that we eat plant-based foods with cellulose and resistant starches. But our emotional connection with what we eat is as important as what we eat. That's what I'm trying to say.
I'm not sure who has the mic.
Thank you very much for an interesting talk. I wanted to ask, first of all, Heston, your idea of the bad vibrations from the chef, is that because you've got no Mrs. Gordon Ramsay, maybe to stop people eating at his restaurant?
Say again.
Such a good
the
question.
negative energy for the chefs, is that just to put people off eating at Gordon Ramsay's restaurant?
Yeah.
But
that
anger.
But it's a really good point. I think if people cook with stress, the level of salt they'll put in the food, the level of they'll transfer that stress through to the people eating it. Yeah.
Is it working? Yeah. My question was that you mentioned with vegetarianism about it being health-based.
Yes.
And then you mentioned it being kindness.
Yes.
And I think that's a real problem for people that want to be vegans or vegetarian when they speak to people that are meat eaters like myself.
Yes.
Because I think they're two completely different things.
Yeah.
So I think that you can't say that being vegetarian or vegan is necessarily healthy, because there are a lot of unhealthy vegetarians there.
Oh, that's without a shadow of doubt. And I think, again, it's what I try to do with my restaurant is again, you know, we don't cook with any sort of processed fake meats, for instance. And I think that understanding of health food is not the same as vegetarian or vegan. I mean, you can be a vegan and be highly, highly unhealthy. You can eat just from, you know, you can just sit there and eat cornflakes all day, or, you know, whatever it is. And it's about, you know, again, what we do not do is preach about any sort of, exactly that. It's not about being vegan, it's about where does your food come from. And it's, again, introducing it's more about being plant-based instead of being vegan, because you can be vegan and be very, very unhealthy. And it's just about the provenance of really where the food comes from. And actually, ultimately, eating, you know, good, clean food. And that is food that is not sprayed with chemicals and pesticides and fungicides. And that, for me, there's no such health food unless it's totally pure. And I think that's really where I'm coming from, is that it's about eating clean food.
Are you saying also that I think that, you know, it's okay to eat meat? I believe it's okay to eat meat. I think transparency and awareness of the origin of the meat, the same thing as vegetables. You can eat vegetables and do the same damage as eating meat if you're not aware of the transparency of the origin of the meat.
And it's exactly what we try and promote, is the transparency in food. I think it's more that.
Yeah, and the supermarket world is terrible. If you look at, I don't want to mention any names, but the food labelling laws, so they can say, get rid of these words, but you can buy a packet of turkey breast slices this big, right? Turkeys don't have breasts that big.
No, for sure.
And on there's a nice little watercolour painting of a manor house. So people, understandably, are going to go to the supermarket without even realising it and go, right, oh, this is a lovely little farm. Mm-mm. And they have no idea where their food is coming from. So
that's more the emphasis on what health food is.
Yeah, just give them transparency and then make a decision. If you go, right,
but then you're
I now realise how this is made.
Monsanto, exactly. If it's Monsanto making your food, if it's vegetables or chicken, ultimately it's not a health food product.
Yeah, exactly. And then make your own decision.
Or do the research.
Have the transparency.
Look beyond the label. I think that's what it is. It's just about.
But I think the food companies have to give people more. People are busy. Our lives are busy. Mums have no. I saw a headline about a year ago in one of our favourite tabloid newspapers, which said eating biscuits gives your babies cancer.
Oh no!
How the hell do you get away with putting that in the press?
Yeah, no. It's diabolical.
So as a mum, what are you supposed to do? You don't even know what you should be eating. There's not enough transparency.
Maybe they're talking about the high fructose corn syrup or something in biscuits. I mean, I don't
know. It's all nonsense. One thing doesn't get you something else.
No, for sure.
Eating biscuits gives your babies cancer is the most ridiculous headline I've ever seen.
But then it's exactly that, all the food labelling. I mean, how are we supposed to make decisions on that, based on the lies?
Because
ultimately?
The food companies are amongst the biggest companies in the world.
Yes, we know that.
So, anyway.
Not sure who has the mic.
Hi, thank you for a great evening. how do you feel about bringing the relationship back with 60% of the population that eat to survive? They go to these supermarkets that charge £1 for a meal. They look to feed their families.
Yeah.
And as going back to the subject you just said about the sugar, the salt, the crap they put in these things, how do we re-enlighten their views of enjoyment of food rather than eating to survive?
That's a great question.
I think I mean I can safely say it's about look what we said about imagination, going back to the drawing board, going back to teaching nutrition at schools, teaching about just the simple understandings of how to eat and where does your food come from, and restoring that connection from toddler's age. Most of, I can safely say, the children in my son's class, he's year 2, doesn't understand where an egg comes from because all they see is that it's in a box. And this is no joke, but that's how far removed we have gotten. And so no wonder it's just a survival, instinct that we have because we don't even understand anymore from a very, very basic level. And I think it's just about reintroducing that very basic understanding that we've lost. Ultimately, our ancestors have been teaching for hundreds of years how to, grow and appreciate food, and not just it be a survival instinct anymore.
But kids learn through fairy tales.
Yeah.
They learn through storytelling. So why can't we just put the stories and the fairy tales back into, and this is going to take a while. You can't do it in a week, a day, a week, a month, a year. But you can introduce. There was a book called *Sapiens* by Yuval Harari, his first book. So he says 13.8 billion years ago, space, matter, and time combined, and that was Big Bang. That's physics. Then as a result of that, atoms and molecules are produced, and that's chemistry. Then some of those produce cultures, organisms, that's biology, and some of those organisms form cultures, and that is history. Food, cooking, eating is the only thing that you can replace that with. We have made food so comfortable, so you were saying £1 for something and £1 for... We've made food so comfortable that we don't care about it anymore.
Well, it's the convenience.
And it's just easy. It's like a breath. We don't care about our breath anymore.
Yeah.
So, all right, meditation and mindfulness is coming back into coolness. If we can value our breath, if we can value the water we drink, if we can value the food, but we can't tell people to value it.
No, but we can teach them. We can teach them.
Put it in a fairy tale. Put it in a story, because we're storytellers. You can imagine, as I said, a candy floss cloud attached to this building with a licorice rope. You can imagine it. You know it's not there. Well, maybe you don't. But you can imagine it. This is the beautiful, unique element of human beings. It is to be able to imagine things that don't exist. That's how we have physics and religion. That's how we have superhero films, and it's how we have social media, because imagination. So we have to make kids, tell them the story around it. Let them imagine, let them play, let them experiment. Don't judge them. Don't tell them that they should only be eating wilted spirulina or they're eating too much sugar. Don't tell them that. That's bullshit. I believe so strongly about this. It's bullshit. It's non-judgmental. Create a story.
It seems that Camilla is trying to introduce healthy eating.
Yes.
Are you doing that in your restaurants?
Am I doing it in my restaurants?
Yes.
But it depends what would you call healthy eating?
Well,
So I'd say 15 courses at the Duck. I have one meat course. All my food is organic, yes, But I don't know what is healthy eating? Yes, our relationship with food. It's our relationship with food. I believe in our relationship with food. The fairy tale that we believe in with food. So, yeah, what is healthy eating?
I think healthy eating it's a human right, and I think it's our human right to farm naturally. I think it's our human right to, empower smallholders, empower the actual individual farmer.
If you want to, yes, I agree.
And take that, move away from the industrialization of farming, and I think that is the foundation of healthy eating. It's not about anything else.
That the gentleman there, thank you, who said about the people.
Well, we need to provide healthy food
for
at a better
£1,
cost, ultimately.
There are many people that can't, that either they don't want to or they can't spend the money on that. I agree with you.
But it shouldn't be a movement for the elite. And I think that's where it's completely, again, but that's to do with programming, that's to do with, some people would rather spend that money on an iPhone than a good food shop or actually going to a farmer's market. And that's the thing, it's about changing the way that people think about food and the importance. And
that's what I think the fairy tales could come in for kids.
And I think it's more that. It's like moving away from, wanting to spend your money on social media or the new phone or technology or whatever, and actually just going, well, no, your human health is more important than that, and you want to spend a little bit more.
Your human happiness is more important than your human health.
Absolutely.
Because if you live to 150, does that mean it's better than living to 100?
But then
if
you
live
can argue,
happier, but obviously living happier is what?
One more question, guys. I don't know who has the mic, so you choose.
Hello? Yeah, are we conflicting here? So,
okay, 2 more questions.
Actually, my comment really is a follow-on to the lady before me who talked about are you doing enough for the kind of quality of food that we're eating, and I think you've mentioned a lot about connectivity with the food that we eat, and don't want this to come across as have a go at Heston even, but the food that you do produce, which undoubtedly creates some sort of connectivity, is entirely unachievable for the vast majority of the population. So what you're creating is a connectivity with food, which is, again, I think that you use the word elite, but actually does it do what you've talked about a lot this evening, which is creating an environment where we can eat better and the provenance of our food is better. But I'm not entirely sure that you do that through your restaurant.
So I've rewritten the GCSE. I've rewritten it with OCR, Oxford, Cambridge. I've rewritten the GCSE for food and nutrition for us schools. And the government, when I mentioned Uwe Harari's thing about Big Bang physics and chemistry and stuff, is the only thing that every subject in schools comes underneath. It's hunting, gathering, sourcing, cooking, eating, sharing food. And I've got it into the GCSE curriculum. It is optional. My ambition is to make it thank you. Yeah. Thanks. And at A-level, it's been dropped. This is ridiculous. Why is English, language, and maths more important than being able to taste our relationship with food? How does that make sense when we've got computers to do maths better than us? We have Grammarly to tell us where to put our semicolon. It's ridiculous. Einstein said, why would you learn what you can look up? So I'm onto the board. I was there with him this morning of a robotics company. So I want to try and use robots in restaurants.
Oh, gosh.
To show...
We're all screwed.
No. To show what human beings use robots to do what robots can do. and use them to demonstrate the beauty of human beings' imagination. So, in answer to your question, yes, I have rewritten the GCSE for schools on food and nutrition with no money. So I've given, yes, and for me, I will die for this. I just happen to have a restaurant.
I'm not sure. Oh, I think the person I was crossing over with probably just started this part of the question, but thank you very much to both our speakers. I don't know the actual figures, but we have a huge number of people in this country accessing food banks, and we have a huge number of children having to access free school meals.
Yes.
That's not a choice between an iPhone and good food. It's the same. If you look out of this country, we've got people who are in such extraordinary stressful circumstances, crossing from Syria to Turkey to Greece to try and get somewhere. Sorry, I'm a bit emotional about it. But how are we supposed to give them the time to have gratitude? They don't have that time. They're under the most extraordinary stressful circumstances. So in what world are we saying that everyone has to eat organic? There are people who can't afford fresh fruit and vegetables. We're going back almost to a time just after the Second World War where people just had tin food because it was the only thing they could afford. Yeah. It isn't a choice between an iPhone and fresh food. So what do we do about that? You are at the cutting edge of this, both of you. What do we do?
There are 2 million, do you know, there are 2 million children in Ghana alone in the slave trade in the chocolate business, right? So it's all very well for us to stand up and say, eat organic. People need to survive and eat. So I agree. We have to. This is a longer term thing.
But it's only been 40 years since the introduction of chemicals and pesticides in the food.
No.
So it's, after the war, exactly that is when the chemical industries didn't know what to do with all the chemicals from actually the war situation and started then infiltrating into agriculture, into medicines. And I think it has been, it's been concentrated for the past 40 years. So I think it will take time for us to reprogram our thinking. And no one can say, yes, look, we need to do this tomorrow.
But if families have no money...
Yeah, but we need to undo almost the thinking and the programming about what we know about food and about what we understand about food. And that's it. It's more empowering people with education going, well, this isn't serving us right anymore. You've got people getting sicker and sicker and fatter. And actually there's it's a serious health epidemic going on. And I think it's more understanding that we can't get any sicker and actually then looking at that connection with food and health and agriculture and then finding solutions for that. I think it's not going to be a radical thing that, again, that we can just change overnight. It's been, again, years of anesthetization. And again, using that word because people have been asleep to what has been going on within the food industry. And again, it's just got the craziest idea that organic food is just for the elite, or you can only, and this is what's happened because of the industrialization of food. It's become more expensive, but ultimately food without chemicals and pesticides is a human right. And that's what we have to start thinking. It's not just for people that can afford it.
But a human right is also eating. A human right is to be able to get some food. And there are still, and I suppose this is a byproduct of how comfortable our lives have become, it shows that there are still areas in the world of people that suffer, that cannot get mouthfuls of food. And if those mouthfuls of food come from a tin can or they come from a processed cheap meal, well, that's better than nothing. It's a starting point. It's a starting point.
Yeah.
I think that for me, again, touching on what you were saying, for me, in this day and age, there should be no excuse for anyone starving to death. There should be no excuse. Absolutely no way. No way.
But then you've got half the world's grains going to feeding animal agriculture, when those grains actually could be going to children in Syria
I agree.
or
that comes
wherever.
after. But first, there should
Instead
not be
of feeding
mums
our
that
cattle.
can't feed their kids,
Yeah.
right? Forget the
But that's
fucking
what's
cattle.
so
But first,
upside down
they
about
need
the
to,
food.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we need to sort that out. But first, there should be no excuse for people starving.
Yes.
In this day and age, I do not understand. And you said to me about my exclusivity about the restaurant. I'm doing things outside of that to try and
Move the needle.
move the needle. There should be no excuse for anybody starving to death. There should be no excuse whatsoever. Give them bloody chemicals for now. Give them something cheap and easy.
Yeah.
But just feed them. There should be no excuse. Then the next stage is exactly
But
what
then
you're
you're
saying.
feeding the monster as in the Monsantos and the chemical industries.
But people need to live. When you have a mum with kids, I spent a week with a woman that was, she was a refugee. And it was from Afghanistan. She gave up everything and she went into this camp, refugee camp, and she just cooked soup. She cooked soup. And she gave people not just food, but connection. I was there with her. I saw it. I just don't believe I have a restaurant that's exclusive. Yes, I know. But I do not want anybody to go without food. There should be no excuse in this modern age when we're sitting here with our nice clothes.
In a bubble.
In a bubble.
Yeah.
There should be no excuse that kids starve to death. Not now. No. Now, I've got a lot of work to do on this, but I just believe it. I just believe it. And that needs to come first. Then we can look at exactly the problems with over-farming, bleaching soil, and all of these chemicals, and Monsanto and this stuff. I'm with you 100%. Let's first just try and give people something to eat.